Go Tenant, the revolutionary new property software built by landlords and trusted by tenants. Go Tenant is your one-stop property management assistant that will take the pain away from your tenant recruitment process and the management of your properties. From advertising your property to maintenance reporting, electronic signatures to full property management software. Stop worrying about double bookings and the hassle of unnecessary admin, because Go Tenant is here to enable you to seamlessly run your portfolio from anywhere in the world. Go to gotenants.co.uk to find out more.
As a special edition of Cup of Tea with Rick G this morning, got my brew here. We've got no interview today, and I've got a poorly daughter, so I'm in the home office today. Not the home office, obviously, but if you hear any background noise, then it's my daughter coughing because she's a little bit sick today. So today I just wanted to drop by. And we're coming up towards Christmas, and people are starting to think about New Year's resolutions and think about how you can change your lives in 2019. So I wanted to go through why we invest in HMOs. What are the most attractive and the downsides of property investing with houses and multiple occupation. Now, single let properties have kind of been the mainstay of property investing for years, haven't they? And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a good, solid bread and butter investing strategy in the long run. But with single let properties, they're not going to change your life right now. You're not going to get any massive returns right now. So that's why we choose HMOs. So I'm going to go through a few, I've got a few slides here. So I'm going to go through a few slides with you just to help you understand what we do, why we do it. Okay. So what is a HMO? I say HMO, so I'm in the H camp, not the H camp. So I don't know which camp you're in, which one, I don't know. Let me know, because the country seems divided by it. So a HMO is a house in multiple occupation, okay? A house in multiple occupation. Now, the definition of a HMO is a property that's occupied by 3 or more people forming more than one household. Okay, that's the definition. Now, don't get that confused with licensing or planning, because it's neither. It's simply the definition of a HMO. 3 or more people forming more than one household with shared facilities. Okay. Now, you may hear, certain terminology like house share, multi-let, all of those, student accommodation, etc. But they're all HMOs. At the end of the day, if they fall into that category, 3 or more people forming more than one household, then that is the definition of a HMO. It's nothing to do with licensing, and it's nothing to do with planning. I'm going to talk about licensing and planning very quickly. So licensing and planning are 2 very different things. You must understand that. Now, most of you will know that already, and it's okay if you don't, but you've got to make sure that you do get a grasp of this, because you can have one without the other. And fundamentally, you will normally need both in order to be able to trade your HMO. So let's look at licensing. Now, areas that have additional licensing will need a license for any HMO. And if you remember the definition of a HMO, 3 or more people forming more than one household, then you'll need a license anyway if your area has additional licensing. If your area doesn't have additional licensing, then you may fall under the mandatory licensing scheme, which is 5 or more people forming more than one household. Okay, so it used to be 5 or more people over 3 or more floors. Well, that's gone now since October. So it's literally now just 5 or more people. Then you'll need a mandatory HMO license. Okay, so those are the differences. Now, planning permission is completely different, and you can't do any of this unless you have the required planning permission anyway. So planning permission in areas that don't have something called Article 4 direction, you can convert a normal family house, which is planning class C3, into a HMO, house of multiple occupation, which is planning class C4, for a maximum of 6 people, 6 sleeping people under permitted development, provided you're not in a conservation area and it's not listed. So if you don't have Article 4, you can do that under permitted development all day long. Now that means that you can just literally go and buy a house and convert it into a small HMO. If you want more than 6 people, then you have to apply for planning permission. You can't do any more than 6 people unless you have the relevant planning. Excuse me. If your area has something called Article 4 direction, Article 4 takes away permitted development in certain areas. And that will mean, or may mean, that if it's for HMOs specifically, then you will have to have planning permission anyway. So how do you find all of this out? Well, simply go online and have a look to see if your area has Article 4 direction. If you can't find it online, excuse me, we've all got colds this morning in our house. If you can't find it online, then phone up your planning officer and ask them, because they're really helpful. They will tell you. So that's what we covered there. We've covered the definition of a HMO. We've covered Article 4 planning, and we've covered licensing. So lots of things to consider there, and lots of things for you to take in. But it's important that you don't get them confused, because they are all very different. They're all their own separate entity. I've got to have a cup of coffee in the morning. Okay, so for us, we have 4 main tenant profiles. We've got students, we have working professionals, we've got working sharers, and we've got local housing authority tenants. Now, they're all very different types of, tenant, of demographic. So we'll break them down slowly. So students. Students are great. If you are close to a university, the closer the better, because students don't like to walk more than a minute away from any destination, because they'll fall over and get tired. And I'm being very stereotypical there, so if there's any students watching, I do apologise. I jest. So students are great tenants, and they will usually come for 10 or 11 months of the year. Sometimes they might stay for 12, but I wouldn't recommend that. And that means that you, first of all, will, well, not likely to have any voids if you do it properly for that period of time. And then when they leave at the end of their contract, you've got time then to go in, redecorate the property and get it ready for the next batch of students. So usually once you have students, you set and forget. So you'll get them in for the academic year and they're in. And that means that you can relax and you don't have to worry about any voids usually. Now, normally if your student house is on one contract, all of the students will go on the same contract. And if one leaves, it's the rest of the students then they will have to repopulate that room. Otherwise, they have to pay the difference. So they're quite incentivized to make sure that they've got a full house all of the time. The other element with students is they are council tax exempt, whilst the property is fully occupied solely by students. If you've got 5 students and 1 working professional, then you're no longer exempt in that house. And students will always come with a guarantor usually, and that's normally the bank of mum and dad. And if, of course, they don't pay their rent, it just takes a very quick phone call to say, hello, mum, hello, dad, student hasn't paid their rent this month. Please, can you look at this? And please, can you rectify it? Then we've got young professionals. Now, young professionals for us are people that have probably been through the student arena, and they've been in HMOs before and they know what to expect, and they're now out of that education and they're into their first full-time graduate position, and very often they've been through the system, they know what HMOs are like, and they are, you know, they're good because they've been down that road before. Then we've got working sharers, and that kind of is everybody else. That's everybody else that have got a job. So everybody else that, any job, they could be factory workers, they could be care workers, it doesn't matter as long as they have got a full-time job. And what we stipulate is that they must be in full-time employment for a minimum of 3 months. So that means that they've passed their probationary period, if you like. Then, of course, we have the local housing authority tenants, and those are tenants that don't work. Now, either through their own choice or through life, because maybe they could be disabled, etc. Now, it's not a demographic that we use. We don't go down the route of LHA tenants. It's just something that doesn't work for us, because I feel that, it's a very difficult strategy to start with, very difficult if you're not used to dealing with people face to face. So it does work for some people, but certainly it's not something that we use in our own portfolio. So let's look at the comparison now between single-let properties and multi-let properties. Now, we share the good and the bad with you on all of our training sessions and all of our live feeds. So we're going to tell you, the good and the bad. So single-lets, the pros. Well, there are often very low barriers of entry, or lower. I mean, it's getting harder now with the PRA regulations that came in last year or the year before. But, you can often fund them with straightforward buy-to-let finance. You can get better deals, you can get lower interest rates, which means that you don't have to pay as much. mortgage per month, which means that you should cash flow a little bit more. And then the lower maintenance, because single let properties usually you will set and forget. You put a family in, and you've only got one family in that property rather than 7, 8, 9, 10 people. So the maintenance costs are going to be a lot less. And you can get a tenant in a single let property that can stay, well, all their life, I suppose, in theory. We've got tenants in some of our single lets that have been with us for 17 years. Now, we've not owned those properties for 17 years, but we bought them with the tenants in situ. So, they can stay forever, which means it's, great for you because it's less work and there's less churn. However, the cons, you are either fully occupied or you're empty. There's no in between. So with a single let property, if it's empty, then you're going to have to pay the mortgage. You're going to have to, it's going to cost you money. Whereas HMO, it doesn't matter so much because you've got several different streams of income. So with HMO properties, now potentially this could be the same property. The pros, and this is a massive pro, is you've got the potential for far more income than you have with a single let. And there are opportunities for you to become a lot more creative in the long run, because we've heard of rent-to-rent lease options, exchange with delayed completions and that kind of thing. So you can be a lot more creative in the deal because the deal will lend itself to that. The bad stuff with HMOs, and there is bad stuff, folks, I am very honest and transparent when I talk about HMOs. HMOs have changed my life. They absolutely have. But they don't come without their issues and their problems. I posted in Facebook last week or the week before about some of the issues we were having, and boy, they were testing. For those of you that don't know, we had some massive problems with drains. We had tenants upstairs that we were looking to rehouse. We almost had to rehouse them. We didn't. Long story, and I'll save that for another live feed. But there are bad stuff. Maintenance costs are a lot higher. And the other aspect is the churn rate. So people that move in and out, often, unless it's a student HMO, can be a lot more, which means that you're going to have to work a little bit harder to fill the rooms. And they can be a lot harder to finance, a lot, more complex to finance, because it will be based on the property. So you need a HMO mortgage rather than a buy-to-let mortgage. So let's look at the returns that we can get. So we'll look at a comparable here. So an example, we've got this is based on my area. So let's say a 4-bedroom single let property, your vanilla type 1960s mid-terrace property, okay? These are like little TARDISes because they just keep going back and back. You open the door and they're just huge. And sometimes you can go into the loft space, sometimes you can go down into the cellar space as well. So for a single let property, a 4-bedroom in our area, we would look at achieving around about £950 in rent. Now the bills on that property are going to be at 70% loan to value. So we keep it nice and easy for you to understand. On an interest rate only, the mortgage cost on that is going to be about £583 a month. Okay. The insurance for the property about £25 a month. If you want to put it under a letting agent, then you can do that if you want to. Let's say that's going to be about £95 a month. Maintenance costs for the property about £50 a month, and your gas and electric checks, mandatory stuff, about £10 a month. Okay, so that's going to give you a huge staggering figure of about £91 per month in net profit. How does that sound to you, folks? Is that something that would motivate you to start thinking about moving forwards and changing your life dramatically? I'm not sure it will. But what we're going to do is repurpose this house. It's the same property, and we're going to change one of the communal rooms, because it's got a living room and a dining room, into a bedroom. So now we've got a 5-bedroom property. I'm presuming we've got the right planning permission and there are no issues with that. Then we're going to convert this to a 5-bedroom HMO property. Now we're going to get a massive rent now of £2,125 a month for that property instead of £950, and you can see where the difference is here. The bills are going to be a lot bigger because we have an all-inclusive model and we pay all of the bills. So we pay our gas, electric, water, fibre optic, broadband, etc. Most of us do that in the industry, and we have to pay the council tax as well because we don't generally do students per se. So most of our tenants are made up of working professionals. So the mortgage Well, it's going to be the same because we stack the mortgage to 6% when we stack our deals, just in case the rates rise. I'm going back to the Maggie Thatcher age. I hope they don't, but if they do, we're factored up to 6%. So that's going to be the same. All of the other costs and the other bills are going to be about £475 a month. So that's going to be your gas and electric and everything else that I mentioned before. And then everything else is going to be the same because it's, pretty much the same property. Gas and electric checks are going to be the same. But the difference is now, because we've turned this into a 5-bedroom property, we've got 5 streams of income instead of 1. Now, the profit on this example is now £656 a month, as opposed to, £91 a month as a single let. And that's why we invest in HMOs, for that exact reason. Now, we're not necessarily going to pay much more for the property. In fact, if we're going to convert it ourselves, we're buying it as a normal traditional house anyway, and we're going to convert it ourselves with the right planning permission because we've got Article 4, and turn it into a 5-bedroom HMO. So that is the difference. That's why we can have massive returns. Now, if you have an income of, let's say, £50,000, and you are going to be investing in single let properties, and they're going to be cash flowing at about £100 a month, how many of those are you going to need to replace your income? You're going to need about 50, aren't you? You're going to need a load of properties. Now, how easy is that for you to achieve? How easy is it for you to go out and start investing in single lets to get 50 properties? And that's not going to happen quickly. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. Whereas with HMOs, you can do that quite quickly. You can do it a lot faster, certainly. So how do you do this with limited funds? How do you get out there with limited funds or any funds at all? And I know that when I started investing in HMOs, we didn't have any cash. We really didn't, folks. And that's the whole, point of doing this, is that you can do this with limited funds or no funds at all by using some of the strategies that we talk about, some of the strategies that you hear in the Facebook communities. And even if you have got lots of money, at some point you probably will run out because you're going to be putting your money down on properties. You're going to have to be paying stamp duty. You're going to have to be paying for your deposits. And eventually that's going to get gobbled up unless you invest with the right strategies and do the things that we talk about in order for you to be able to recycle your money back out of the deal. So first of all then, what strategies can you use? Well, you can use rent to rent. And I know lots of people will be like, oh, rent to rent, you can't do that. It's illegal, it's immoral, it's this, it's that. I don't know why people think it is. Now, maybe there were some really bad operators, many years ago that used to do this incorrectly. There probably are. There probably still are now. I don't know. But here's what, rent to rent is really easy, and it's a really great strategy to start you off with HMOs if you do it properly. So you can source ready-made HMOs. And this is what we teach folks, rather than going out making this difficult and spending loads of money on refurbishment costs, you can get out there and source a HMO that's already converted. Predominantly, it should be, not always, but it should be compliant to current standards. But most of the work is already done. You've got your fire doors, you've got all your thumb turn locks, you've got your door closers, you've got your interlinked smoke alarm system or your panel grade A smoke alarm system. So all you need to do is work out a deal with the person that owns that property. So the things that you need to look for. First of all, what's their motivation? Why are they looking to rent their property to you? And that's a great question, actually. It raises a question, why would they? Well, they would for lots of reasons, and they do, folks, because this is what we do. We don't just do rent-to-rents, but we have got a big rent-to-rent portfolio as well. Why would they give a property to you for half the price when they can manage it themselves? Well, for a multitude of reasons. They may have it with a landlord that's failed to rent it, and now they're feeling a lot of pain because they're having to pay the mortgage, they're not making any profit. Maybe it's tired, and because they're not renting it, they're not making any money, so therefore they're not letting it because it's not attractive. Maybe they're just fed up of running their portfolio. They've done it like we are now, maybe in 30 years' time we'll be the motivated landlords. Or maybe for me, not 30 years' time, maybe a little bit quicker. Excuse me. So maybe they've come up to the point where they want to retire, but they don't want to sell their property. They don't want to sell their portfolio. They want to leave it for their estate and for their children, but they just don't want to run it anymore. And they don't want to use an agent because maybe they've not had a very good relationship with an agent in the past. So there's lots of different reasons. When we say about lease options, I'll talk about that in a second, many different reasons for that as well. But you don't know unless you ask. So what we do is we market to these landlords, and we'll put an offer in and say, look, I'd be interested in taking your property over. And the benefit for you is you get to keep the property, of course, it's yours, but we will pay you a guaranteed fee every single month without fail, even if the property's empty. So your property's empty right now. When's your mortgage due? It's due on the 28th. How about I pay your next mortgage payment for you? What do you mean? Well, that's fine. We can do a deal really quickly on this. We can get the legals done really quickly. I can pay your mortgage for you and your next payment, and we can get this done. And I will guarantee that fee every month for the next 3 years. How does that sound? Wow, they don't want to sell their property. They're not incentivized in selling it. Otherwise, they would just sell it. But now what we've done is we've offered them a guaranteed income stream for the next 3 years. And they can walk away. This is a completely passive income stream. And you know what the best thing is? We will decorate the property at our expense. We'll get it up to standard. We'll make it nice and clean and shiny. So when you do get it back, it will be refurbished for you as well at no extra cost. How does that sound? Well, that sounds awesome. A couple of things you need to consider. First of all, does it have the correct planning permission? So you need to make sure it does, otherwise there's no point in doing it in the first place. And then secondly, have they got the correct mortgage product? That is paramount. They do need the consent to let from their mortgage provider for a HMO. Now, if they haven't got that, we can try and help them get it. It's not always going to happen because if they're on a buy-to-let product, their interest rate's likely to be very low. But then you know what? We're marketing directly to HMOs, so they shouldn't be on a buy-to-let product anyway. And then what we'll do is we'll get the legals drawn up by our legal team. We will pay their legals for them as well. So they'll go to an independent solicitor and we will offer to pay their legals for them if they want legal representation, suggest they do have it. And then we've got a deal, and that's rent to rent, folks. In the contract, it gives us the authority to let the property to our own tenants, or sublet if you like. The word sublet, people think, you talk to your mate at the pub, that's illegal, you can't do that. Well, of course you can. There's nothing illegal about it at all. Subletting property is fine, providing you've got the consent of the owner, okay? That's what we do with the rent to rent. That's how we do it. I'm going to give you a case study now. Now, this is probably the first or the second rent to rent that we ever did. Now this is an old deal really, but I want to give you an example of how this can work for you. So a few years ago, we had a marketing campaign and we were contacted by the owner of what used to be a pub, and it was in the city centre and it was right opposite the busiest nightclub in the city centre. And it wasn't that attractive looking on the outside. So we went along and we had a look. And the property was an old converted pub, and what he'd done is refurbished the upstairs and turned all of the bedrooms, because it had bedrooms above it, into 12 ensuite letting rooms, most of which were single beds. It was all single skin sash windows and opposite a busy nightclub. So I was kind of wasn't really that interested. Now, his motivation was that he had it with an agent and he only wanted to do students. And he'd missed the student market, and they had 3 students in occupation in the property out of the 12. And he knew that he wasn't going to get any more students for the rest of the academic year, so he knew the property was going to start costing him money. So I offered him, I can't remember now exactly how much it was, but I went back with an offer and he said no straight away. He said, absolutely not. I'm absolutely not interested whatsoever. So we didn't do the deal. But lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, he called me and he said, I'm still without tenants. I am interested now. Can we strike another deal? So I went back, had another look at the property, and I offered this. The first 6 weeks rent free, because it was empty pretty much. And I offered him £2,400 a month in rent for the property, and no deposit and nothing down at all. Didn't cost us anything whatsoever. It was already decorated, it was already refurbished, and he took the deal. And within the first 6 weeks, we were fully occupied, because all I did, I structured the property to attract working professionals. We still had the students in, they sort of dwindled off over the months, but we put it out to working professionals, and we filled the property within the first 6 weeks. So that property didn't cost me anything at all. nothing. And when I say nothing, because we already had the legal documents from the previous deal. So we kind of used the same ones because they were ours. We'd already commissioned them. And then we started to make profit of over £1,000 a month from one deal, from this property, with nothing in, no money down at all. Now, you may think, okay, well, you were lucky, you know, these deals aren't there all the time. No, they're not there all the time. You're absolutely correct. But we went on then to do several more of these deals in exactly the same format. Now, after running this property for about 6 months, this guy came to me and said, hey, I'm really pleased with the way that you've done this. I didn't tell you at the time, but I've got another 8-bed HMO and I'd like to offer you the same deal. Perfect. Now that property brings in £800 a month as well. It was the same deal. We did have to put, I think we spent about £4,000 on that property because it did need a lick of paint. But for £4,000, we got it for 8 years. And it was an 8-bedroom HMO, or still is. So I just generated an income of £1,800 a month from 2 properties, neither of which I owned, and a total outlay of about £4,000. And that's the real, the reality of this. So I'm telling you that you can do this. So for those of you that think, it's impossible, you can't do it, it's rubbish, it's fairy dust, it's unicorns and fluff. It's not, folks, I mean, for those of you that know me, know that I tell you as it is. And you can do this. Now, we've got a program at the moment called the Investor Program. And those those students on that program are into month 2. And some of them have already on their 5th and 6th lead. Yeah, so this still works now. It's not, okay, well, the market's changed. It's not. It still works now. And, this is the way forward if you don't have any money to invest in property or, straight away. Now, yeah, you don't own it. I get that. But this is a great foot up the ladder for you to be able to get out there and start thinking about how you can make it work rather than letting all the how you can't make it work control what you do for next year in 2019. Okay, so let's look at the next one, options. What's an option? Okay, well, an option basically is an agreement with the vendor to be able to purchase a property at some point in the future. But it's the option to purchase. It's not the obligation to purchase. So what we do with options is we can use them for us if we've got no money that we want to buy right now. The vendor wants to sell the property. They may have been struggling to sell it because, I don't know, maybe they've built on it over the years and it's no longer a family home. It's less attractive to a family. So it's been on the market for maybe a year and a half. They can't sell it. So we can go and offer to buy it off them at some point in the future for a fixed value. And in the meantime, we'll rent it from them. So it's like a rent to rent, only with the option to purchase at the end of it. And it gives you a great way of controlling a property that you don't own. You don't need a mortgage. You don't need any large deposits. And it gives you the ability to improve the property whilst you take control over it. Now, the great thing about that is you can assign it to somebody else as well if it's written in the agreement. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can take the property on and maybe you've got it for 5 years. And in 2 years' time, your circumstances change. So you can't give it back to them within that period. You can only give it back to them at the end of the option deal, of the lease, when the lease comes to an end. But you can assign it to somebody else, and maybe you can assign it for a fee. So almost you could sell that deal on to somebody else. And it's a great way. So you've got like a purchase lease option, which is what I've just explained. You've got a land gain option. So if you're looking at developing land or land banking, you can potentially grab hold of a piece of land, go and seek planning permission, and then lock it out on an option whilst you do that. So that means that if you do get planning permission, then you've still got exclusivity over that property and the owner can't take it back off you and get your gains by selling it with planning. So lots of developers do that. We did that years ago. Somebody approached us before we really knew what was going on. And we had some barns attached to a local pub. And they said, look, we want to take these barns, but we need planning permission to turn them into a house. So we'll give you a £2,000 non-refundable deposit. And in the meantime, we'll lock it out for 6 months under what's called an option. And then during that 6 months, we'll be seeking planning permission. If we don't get it, you get your property back and you get to keep the £2,000. If we do get it, then we'll buy them off you. And that's in essence really what, the good things about an option. That's what you can do with them. So it's about gaining benefits for the owner, the vendor, and you as the investor. For another way of an option may be that if someone's selling their portfolio because they're coming to retirement and they've got capital gains issues, we've all got a capital gains allowance of once a year. So you could structure an option to buy their 5 properties over the next 5 years, so they get full benefit from their capital gains reduction each year. So they don't want to sell them all now because the capital gains might be huge. So we can structure an option deal where we buy 1 a year when they've spoken to their accountant and they find out when they can do it and how they can do it, and we'll structure a deal around that in order to buy their portfolio straight from them. So I've got an option example here. So this is I think the first option we ever did, and again it came from our direct campaigns. So all of our properties come from direct campaigns, and I was approached by a vendor who was actually a property investor himself. And it was a property that wasn't in an Article 4 area. He'd turned it into a HMO. He'd done all the work. He put en suites in. It was an ex-council property on an ex-council estate. And it was a 4-bedroom property. It was a 5-bedroom property with a living room. So he came to us and said, look, he's managed it himself over the years. And it's not worked out for him. And he'd come to the end of his tether. And he said, look, I want to do a deal, but I want to do it quickly. If you don't do it quickly, I'm going to put it on the market. So I went over the same day, had a look at the property. Guess what? Didn't need anything spending on it. Nothing at all. It was furnished. It was brand new. Well, it was brand new refurbished. It was pristine. So we struck a deal. Now, this property was in an area I'd never really tried before. And it was a bit of a gamble for me. But I thought, it's too good to be true. He wants £900 a month for this property, with a future purchase value of $240,000. Now, when we took the deal on, it was worth about 190 or thereabouts. And we took it on over 5 years. But remember, this is the option to purchase, not the obligation. So we've got nothing to lose there. And he's very aware. He had independent legal advice. And he was told that, at the end of the deal, if the property is not worth what he wants for it that's on the option, we won't be buying it. But in the meantime, we get to trade the property for 5 years. Now, we pay £900 a month for the property. We had 6 bedrooms. We've taken it back down to 5. But the profit now on this property is £900 a month on a property that we don't own, and it cost us £1,000 deposit. That was legal fees, really. We paid his legal fees, which were just under £1,000, and that was the option consideration. That was the monetary value for the option. So it cost us £1,000. It was already developed. All we had to do was advertise it. It was furnished, everything. So that's the 3rd property we got for nothing. So now you can see that my income had just gone up to just under what we're looking at now. So nearly £3,000 a month from 3 properties, none of which cost that much money. So this one was just £1,000, and the other property that I mentioned was about £4,000 for a light refurb. So for £5,000, I was earning about £3,000 per month. Now, when I was in the police, for those of you that know, I used to be a policeman, I was bringing home less than £2,000 a month. The first 3 deals that I got replaced my police income in 2 months, maybe 3 months. So, you can do this, folks. You really can. And I just wanted to share those stories with you, give you some of my own case studies, because very often, I talk about stuff, but I don't show you, exactly what we've done and what we've got. And, this is what we do. We do option deals, we do rent to rents, and we do purchases, but we make sure that none of our money is left in the deal, So these properties are out there. You've just got to go hunting for them. Now, they're not going to land on your doorstep. They're not going to hit your doormat. And it's not something that you're going to be able to do, and find it that easy unless you get out there and physically do something about it. So you've got to get out there. You've got to put yourself out there, and you've got to really make it happen yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you. So where are we, folks? We're half an hour in. So I wanted to share that with you today. It's quite important that I do give you some of my own case studies as well. Hope you found that interesting and informative. Now, I do want to introduce you to 2019. What's happening in 2019? What are you going to do in 2019? Are you going to do any of this? Are you going to change your life through property? Because now is absolutely the best time to get into property, because so much has changed with the mandatory licensing regulations, which is going to affect a lot of people with their mortgages, with the Clause 24 tax, the minimum room sizes have all come in since October. Now is a great time to get in because loads of people are getting out. That's because, they've had enough or they can't make the property work anymore. So we can go in and repurpose it. We can go in and make sure that it is compliant and get a great deal. So now's an awesome time, folks. I know we're getting towards Christmas, but January time, people are going to be really motivated. They're going to have their New Year's resolutions. They're going to be thinking, what can we do this year? I know, let's sell this, let's sell that. And that's where we can come in and help. So we are going to be introducing our next 6-month HMO investor program very soon. Okay, now this is a hand-holding mentoring program with me face-to-face in my office once a month. So we all meet once a month and we go through the investing strategy, and I give you the recipe to do this, to do everything that I've just explained to you. All you have to do is follow the recipe. All you need to do is do the things we tell you to do in the order we tell you to do them. We structure this program from years of our own experience, folks. We're not new to training. You know that we've been out there, we've been training for a lot of years. And we just teach what we know ourselves. We don't teach stuff we don't know. So with the HMOs, they can be life-changing. So if you're interested in becoming a part of a 6-month program, now it's not 12, it's 6 months, because we know that people want to take action quickly. They want to get out there and they want to change their lives quickly. So we've done this on a 6-month program. So it's a fast track. So if you're interested in getting on board or finding out more, please let me know, because there are only 10 spaces. Now, the last program that we introduced, I don't mind telling you that we had over 100 people showing interest. Okay, and I had probably over 45 to 50 applicants, but not everybody is going to be suited to the program. What we need to do first is have a conversation so I can find out exactly what it is you're looking to achieve. Are you prepared to be challenged by me? Because sometimes you need someone to push you and get tough to help you get over the line. And that's what we do on the program, folks. So you get me face to face. It's in my office. It's a group of 10 people, no more than 10 people. And once a week, we also have a regular Zoom call as well. So you get a face-to-face call with me every week. And you get a monthly meeting with me for 6 months in my office, where we give you all of the workbooks, we give you the recipe, all you have to do is follow it. So if you're interested in that, folks, please comment below. I will get you the brochure so you can have a look at it. We can set up a call, we can have a chat with me, just so I can see where you are and what you're looking to achieve and whether that is something that you think is going to be suitable for you. So please comment below. Hope you enjoyed that, folks. Loads of content there for you. Nice early one from Cup of Tea with Rick G today. We're back with the Cup of Tea series in January. We're changing the format with the interview slightly, so looking forward to that. And have a great day, folks. Don't forget, comment below if I can help you with anything. Take care.
Go Tenant, the revolutionary new property software built by landlords and trusted by tenants. Go Tenant is your one-stop property management assistant that will take the pain away from your tenant recruitment process and the management of your properties. From advertising your property to maintenance reporting, electronic signatures to full property management software. Stop worrying about double bookings and the hassle of unnecessary admin, because Go Tenant is here to enable you to seamlessly run your portfolio from anywhere in the world. Go to gotenants.co.uk to find out more.